What's up, YouTube? So we're back to the ore stacker. We're back to it, and there's too many shades of the ore stacker to know. It's like kind of peeling apart an onion. And you can see here, this is a poster of the world famous Academy Award winning, multiple time Academy Award winning movie series 50 Shades of Grey, right? And this is pretty much just like 50 Shades of Grey, the ore stacker now. There's so many different shades to the ore stacker, you don't know where it is going, right? Like you have CI, you have Low Life, you have Champion Rue, you have Covenant. There's every single flavor, right? So we're gonna go over which ore stacker is gonna be the best. We're gonna go over which one we're gonna play. And I don't really think there is a best variant. It's more like the variant that you like the best, right? There's pros and cons for every single variant, and we're gonna go look into them. So before we get to see all the different shades of ore stackers, we want to go over what exactly an ore stacker is and how the build is different than before, right? So there's not really an insane amount of ore stacker content out there. There's some people who make some build demonstrations, but not many people actually make any guides for ore stackers, purely because ore stackers are a pretty expensive build even at this point in time. And I do think that Rue does have a budget variant if you're interested in trying out the very lowest hanging fruit, right? So the ore stacker is probably one of the most diverse builds in terms of how many different ways to approach building it. Definitely by far so many different variants, and I think people don't really know what's exactly the best. They do know probably the pros and cons, but they don't really know what exactly is going to be the best for them, right? And this is very confusing for new aspiring ore stackers as they have no idea which variant to play. So I think my job as an ore stacker connoisseur for so long in the past is to try to inform you guys which variant is the best and which variant I like, right? So build is still very expensive. You might think that, oh, ore stacker is kind of out of meta. It's going to be a lot cheaper. That's just not going to be true. Most of the prices are approaching the same prices back when ore stacker was super meta. You have double damage Nebulous going for like 30 exalts. You have Call of the Brotherhood Hatred going for 35 exalts. It's just a wild west out there, right? Ashes of the Star is a very build-defining amulet that opens up possibilities and gives life to alternate quality auras. So if you guys remember back in Heist, everyone had these auras that were insane, like Anomalous, Malevolence, Divergent, Vol Haste. And now it got nerfed, and it's still very vastly nerfed compared to before. But you can see here, Ashes of the Star gives you 20% reservation efficiency, helps you level up gems in Simulacrum, and it gives you 30% quality to all your skill gems like Malevolence. You can get more pen on Purity of Ice and stuff like that. So it's just very good. And most importantly, it can give you projectile speed or more projectiles on your main skill gem like Spark with Divergent, Spark, or just the regular version. So you can see here, these are all the hands representing the diverse different types of aura stackers out there. So first up, we have the traditional low life aura stacker, right? This is the aura stacker that most people know and played in the past. And it uses Shavs and it uses Prism Guardian and it takes advantage of Pain Attunement and low life. Now, a lot of people might be wondering what exactly is the benefit of being low life, right? Low life benefit is you get this one node here, which gives you 30% more spell damage when on low life. And you can turn on Righteous Fire, which gives you an additional 39% more spell damage. So it's a huge damage boost. It's roughly double damage in most cases. And the nice part about low life is you can reserve mana. You can reserve auras on your life. So you use Prism Guardian. You can see here, this person is able to reserve 350% auras on your life pool. And that's actually a huge deal. So most of these characters are able to be run a lot cheaper because they can get free aura reservation efficiency and also do a lot more damage. So they don't need to get so much perfect gear to do all of that damage. And this is done on a Scion Ascendancy. And a lot of these people focus on Lethal Pride and 2 Transcendent Flesh to get crit multi. And it's actually kind of crazy, right? So each one of these jewels over here, you put it in this socket. The Lethal Pride is over here, I think, or something, and a Transcendent Flesh. So the Transcendent Flesh or Lethal Pride gives you plus Dex, and then this plus Dex gets turned into Strength. Or Lethal Pride gives you plus Strength on all of these nodes. And then Transcendent Flesh gives you plus 7 multi per 10 Strength on unallocated passives and radius. And this actually allows you to get to an insane amount of multi on the tree. So if we go here, we import the character over just so we can take a little quick glance at it. From here, you have this thing, Lethal Pride over here. So you can see here, each one of these jewel sockets is roughly 100 multi. So that's where they get all of their multi from. This is a kind of a newer tech because you don't really have that many jewel sockets anymore because all of your jewel sockets are going to introspection and small clusters. So that's why your crit multi is going to be so bad, right? So you have to use a lot of these introspections to try to reach 300% aura effectiveness, and you also have to figure out how to solve your chaos res issue, which is going to be a huge problem, especially if you're trying to do simulacrums. So yeah, so kind of a little bit of issues to solve, but definitely a very, very budget variant compared to all the other ones besides maybe the champion one. So now you have the CI variant of Aura Stackers, and a lot of people run this variant. This variant is a little bit lower on damage, and by a little bit lower, I mean like roughly half damage. You can see which ones these are. So there's this one here. So these people pretty much just get the damage because they have such good gear in general, and some of these people use gloves instead of putting it into the chest. But if you just look at a normal variant that doesn't use, so this one is a little bit different. So how about this one here? So there's so many different variants, right? There's people that use a shield, some people use Aegis Aurora, but basically this person puts the spark into the 6th link, and yeah. So you can use dual nebulous, or you can use a nebulous, a shield, rare, or Aegis Aurora for maximum tankiness. You do lose out on Pain Attunement and Righteous Fire, so roughly half damage of low life. And you do not need to worry about chaos resistance because you are CI, right? And you have a lot harder time running all the auras due to not having Prism Guardian and being able to use your life pool for aura reservation. If you do take a look at most of these profiles, you'll see that their evasion and armor is not really up to snuff. And the reason behind this is you just don't have the aura reservation to be running everything. So this person here has no grace or determ, right? Or they don't have any grace or determination. So they're pretty much relying on their flask to get that. Actually, this person might have determination, right? Nope, no determination, right? So that's actually a huge issue of the build, is you just don't have the room to run all of these auras. You can see here, this guy has no grace or determination. And a lot of times, these builds are pretty much pigeonholed into having mage blood a lot of times. So you can see here, this guy's the same guy I looked at. But you will just have to sacrifice a little bit of auras. And there is a new variant around that one of my friends is running, which is Poor Pat, or this person here. So they're actually using Aegis Aurora for maximum tankiness, and they're using Skin of the Lords for glancing blows, so they're having max block, and they do run determination. So the reason why you always want to use a chest piece and use gloves or helmet for your spark is the fact that chest piece allows you to get level 6 Enlighten, right? And level 6 Enlighten or level 5 Enlighten is a huge deal for aura reservation, and being able to link 50% auras to Enlighten is what allows you to run more auras even though you're on CI, right? So it's very important to be able to use either a helmet or a or glove for the spark link, but that's also very, very costly. And you are very tanky against chaos hits, of course, but most variants of this lacks grace for captivation, and your armor is going to be a lot lower than a lot of the other variants out there. So now we have this new variant, which is called the Covenant Aura Stacker. And boy, oh boy, is this one a new one, right? So this is done by Private PJ. And he's an Aura Stacker connoisseur, like many of us. So you can see here, there's a Covenant. So why do you want a Covenant, right? So new variant of Aura Stacker that relies on using the Covenant with old school blood magic to reserve 5 auras for cheap on your life pool. So usually when you use Arrogance in your link, it's at 250% or so, or 200%, but with this chest, you're only at 100%. So this is pretty much a Prism Guardian. So you're pretty much using your life to reserve your auras, and you don't have to pay any life multiplier. So it's huge. It also allows you to use a level 5 Enlighten because you can get an implicit corruption really cheaply on this. The variant can run the most auras, that is like having Prism Guardian for 5 auras instead of 3. So this variant is really decked out on auras. You can see here, Private PJ here even is running Divergent Skitterbots, and he has Grace and Determination. So you can see here he has a lot of armor and evasion. So how do you deal with the drawback of being low life but not having any chaos res and not having shabs, right? So you have to rely on using Coruscating Elixir. The nice part about Coruscating Elixir is it makes it so that chaos damage does not bypass Energy Shield during the effect, and remove life is regenerated as Energy Shield over 2 seconds. So what he tries to do is he uses the Pathfinder thing, and then he also takes the Flask Mastery to get Utility Flask gain 1 charge every 3 seconds. And then the Pathfinder gains 3 charges every 3 seconds, and he's able to loop this Coruscating Elixir with use when charges reach full because the duration lasts for 12 seconds. And by the time the duration finishes, the flask will be filled up and it will be reused again. So that's how you keep it on infinitely. So it's a very, very cool tech. The only bad thing about this is that if you ever run into nullifier and there's chaos damage around you, you will instantly die because the nullifier will remove your flasks, and that's a huge problem, right? So this is a very rare scenario, but it does suck to die because you will die like this every now and then. And you have to take the Pathfinder portion of this Ascendant, and this is my favorite variant of the ES variants because it's so cool and it makes it so much easier not to have a billion introspection jewels, and you're also able to run so many auras, right? So this is like the old school aura stacker, and it's really just a joy to behold because yeah, very very cool tech, and this is a tech that originated from I think group play and someone doing auras with Covenant. So very very cool technology, and this is the newest variant out there. I think is also very very strong outside of the nullifier thing. So now we move on to a different ascendancy champion, and this is the budget aura stacker that Rue came up with, and this is kind of like the build that kind of started all of this aura stacking craze, especially on a budget. So the reason you want to be a champion, right? What is the difference between champion and ascendant? Champion variant is a lot more budget as it gives you 35% aura effect versus 15 on the Scion. So if you look at champion, they have 30% right here from inspirational, and they have 5% on the travel node. So 35%. While most aura stackers nowadays take champion, which is 15% on the ascendant. So you have 20% aura effectiveness, and you also get 10% mana reservation efficiency because of a free banner, right? And that's pretty much all you get. You also do get intimidate or adrenaline that you can keep trying to proc by using petrified blood and a life flask. But that's kind of annoying. Not too bad though. So the main problem with that is the pathing is a lot worse on champion. Like if you look at any of the champion builds, as we'll see later on in a little bit with the regular version of the champion aura stacker, is that you lose a lot of passive points, and you also lose all of the passive points on top of the ascendant, and you also lose a bunch of cast speed because necromancer node is an insane amount of cast rate. You take this off, you can see it is roughly 30% of your cast rate. So this variant does not try to get 300% aura effectiveness and gets 90% max res by cheating with Eldritch Implicit on chest and with Militant Faith. So the thing about 300% aura effectiveness is you want 300% aura effectiveness so you can get 90% max res. And you want 90% max res because it scales your damage with Nebulous, right? So Nebulous becomes a 600% damage weapon once you have 90% max res. So you're able to not have to get 90% max res because you're able to use a lot cheaper things. So let's go over here. Let's go find a bad champion, right? Let's see, Blaster 1. This guy looks pretty mediocre, right? So you can see the Blaster guy, he's cheating because you can get extra aura effectiveness with the Eldritch Implicit on Purity of Ice. And then he's also getting plus max res on the gloves with +1 max cold res. And yeah, that ends up being a huge amount of max resist. So you're able to run around at like 250% or effectiveness that you still get 90%, right? So that's why this character is able to function without getting 300%. So you're also able to run 150% aura for free due to Divine Blessing Life Tap tech. So you use this 50% aura, use Divine Blessing, use Life Tap, and you get this aura for free. And you're able to cast this. I think you have to cast it once every 23 seconds, so it's not too big of a deal. But in the end, the champion budget aura stacker is extremely hard to run all the auras on budget variant and relies on sacrificing determination, grace, or haste. And that's pretty much just because you don't have your life pool to reserve auras, and you don't have the spark in your gloves or helmet. So you pretty much are screwed in terms of your auras. So maybe if you ran like Prism Guardian and went low life, you could get more auras in, right? So you can see this person is unable to run. Actually, I don't think he's actually running determination or grace in this scenario, and he just has the armor and evasion from his champion ascendancy. So this variant is really budget, but it also works, and it's definitely the lowest barrier of entry if you want to play an aura stacker. So now we have the champion Petrified Blood variant, and this is the one that's actually the number one on PoE Ninja. And this variant is pretty expensive overall. So what it does is it uses 2 Nebulous if you want to be a tooltip warrior, or you could use 1 Nebulous with 1 shield. So you can see a long time ago, this person was not so much of a tooltip warrior. Where did it go? So you can do a more balanced setup with a Nebulous and Shield like he has right here, which is Prism Guardian, and you are a little bit tankier, but you do lose a lot of damage. So it prioritizes using Helmet or Gloves for Spark with a 6-link Grasping Mail with extra defenses and +1 to Intelligence Gems, so you have a level 5 Enlighten. So you see here, this chest is pretty much +1 level of Intelligence Gems, and it is actually like level 5 Enlighten right here. And it allows you to run 5 auras with the Enlighten, which helps you out with Reservation massively. In this version, you have to run Petrified Blood. And Petrified Blood allows us to be low life while being life based. So we don't need to worry about chaos damage penetrating our defenses. So the way that Petrified Blood works is you reserve a certain amount. It also gives you Overleech. So you're able to leech back life even if you aren't attacking or casting Spark. And it does allow you to use Pain Attunement, and you can also still be using Righteous Fire, right? So it's a super high damage variant still, even though you don't have the cast speed. The problem with champions, as we always know, is that you don't have access to these Necromancer node. And if you take out the Necromancer node, say you have 5.82 cast speed, it goes all the way down to 4, right? So 30% cast speed loss. So that's why this variant kind of feels a little sluggish to play, although it is very, very defensive. And it can also run all of the major auras you need. So yeah, definitely a very high damage variant that's also very defensive, but has a little bit slower cast speed. So now we move on to the last variant, which is the variant I will be trying to make work. So my variant is going to be Scion Petrified Blood. Now the reason we want to be Scion instead of this previous variant is just the passive tree points. So if you look at this guy's passive tree, all of this stuff at the bottom right here is kind of useless, right? Because you can anoint champion of the cause and you can go get charisma, and you do save a lot of these points, and you also get a lot more points just by being a Scion, right? And Scion also has the cast speed notable right here, the cast speed from Necromancer, which also should make it a lot more damage. And you can see here the cast rate is 10.29. And if you import the other profile over, like this one right here, because it does not have Necromancer, I think the cast speed is only 4.89. Wait, this is the old one, right? So let's go use the newer one with the 2 Nebulous setup. And you can see here, let's import it. I think it's probably going to be 8 or is that 7.4, right? And the cast rate is a pretty big difference in making the build feel a lot smoother to play. So that's why we'll be doing the Scion variant with Petrified Blood. And we'll be using these 8-link gloves with Essence cast speed in order to make up for the aura effectiveness. So this build here uses the helmet, but we want to use a helmet with aura effect on the implicit because we need the aura effect because we're no longer a champion anymore. So we'll still be using the 15% aura effect implicit helmet, and we'll be using a grasping mail with level 5 Enlighten. We'll be running Necromancer, Inquisitor, or maybe Raider, and Champion for the Scion Ascendancies. So you have these ones here, Necromancer that gives you the cast speed, then you have Champion that gives you the 15% aura effect, a chance to fortify. And lastly, we will have the Raider, which will give us phasing, frenzy charges on hit and onslaught, and some suppressed spell damage and move speed. Or we can do Inquisitor for just a little bit more damage. And this variant does have a lot more passive points because you get what, 1 passive point here, and then you get 2, and then you get 4. So you have 5 extra passive points. And you also have a lot better, pathing, right? Because all of these points are pretty much useless. So you can drop all of these. You can move it over to Intuitive Leap with Charisma over here, which should save you a bunch of passive points, right? And you'll also be running, I'll also be running double Nebulous for the DPS memes, but you can easily throw on a Prism Guardian or Aegis Aurora to be fully super tanky, right? And that's the nice part about the Scion build and all of these builds in general is I'm not going to be prioritizing 300% aura effectiveness because I think the opportunity cost to get 300% aura effectiveness is too high. As you can see from this profile, the damage is so high purely because you have a lot more flexibility to get jewel sockets. So you can get jewel sockets over here, and you don't need to literally focus every single one of your points into using to try to get more aura effectiveness, right? So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of the other variants of aura stackers always use the voices, and these points are a lot of damage, right? Like Snowstorm, Blanketed Snow are huge damage increases, and there's more Blanketed Snow and Storm Rider for power charges. So there is a huge opportunity cost to using voices and trying to get that aura effectiveness all the way up to 300%. So this is going to be my variant. Not really sure if I'm going to stick with it fully. So we'll see what it goes and how it actually feels to play. So overall, what have you learned, right? I mean, I would just be like these two people. I'll be like confused. I don't really know what's good, right? No real consensus on what is best, right? Not everyone has played every single variant. It's hard to say what exactly you're looking for. You could also even throw in Secrets of Suffering, but that depends on how important Chill and Freeze is. So, like, you can see a lot of these people don't need Secrets of Suffering because you have Stalker Dispels at 4% crit chance on the Helm. Now, you can technically make it with Essence cast speed with, like, Hysteria. So you can get 16% more cast speed, but then you won't have the crit chance. If you don't have the 3 to 4% base crit chance, then you will have to use Secrets of Suffering in order to get 100% crit. And I do think that the biggest change between Aura Stacker, this league and last league, or the previous leagues, is the 300% Aura effectiveness opportunity cost. Might be too high since getting Aura effectiveness is near impossible outside of Introspection and Purposeful Harbinger. In the previous leagues, you had the medium clusters that you can get like 30% in one medium cluster with Replenishing Presence and First Among Equals. And that's just not a thing anymore. So getting 300% means you're sacrificing a jewel socket. And in the end, it comes down to, do you think 10% aura effectiveness is worth 7% life or ES and 50% multi? The answer to that question is probably not in almost every scenario. And I do think a lot of profiles that focus on getting 300% aura effectiveness just to get 300% because it used to be the right thing to do is probably not the right route to go about maximum damage. And like I said, the Eldritch Implicits are a game changer for the chest, being able to get effectively 47 or 50, 60% aura effectiveness on just Purity of Lightning alone, and getting 1% max res on this Militant Faith allows you to play at 250% aura effectiveness and still reach 90% max res. So that's something that's really important to keep in mind. And since we have so much armor, we don't need to worry about the 300% breakpoint anymore for Guardian. That is actually a huge part of the reason why we can afford to not be at 300% and still be perfectly fine, right? So that's actually, I think, the main takeaway from the Aura Stacker is 300% is not necessary anymore. And there is a huge, huge cost to using it, right? But we're all confused, right? We know there's 50 Shades of Aura Stacker, but just like the movie 50 Shades of Grey, we know every single Aura Stacker is great and has a bunch of surprises underneath the sheets. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Bloods and Aura Stackers than me. And see you next time. Bye.